Proxima Centauri, the nearest star to us, 4 light years away, a dim red dwarf. A boring dot in astronomy textbooks. But this is just a screen for what NASA has been hiding since 2019. At the end of this video, I will show you the frequency fingerprint of signal BLC-1 recorded by the Parkes Observatory radio telescope. But first you need to understand why this sound made scientists go silent forever. Why 4 researchers left the project without explanation. Why one of them said in an interview that there are things worse than the silence of space. Much worse. And why since the moment the world learned about the signal, the contact protocol was changed. Now it requires silence, even when there is no error. Space is silent. That's what we've been told for 70 years, since the Drake equation, since Project Ozma, since the WOW signal. We listen to thousands of stars and millions of frequencies, silence, absolute. But what if the silence is a lie? What if the signal has already arrived, but they decided not to hear it? What if those who found it realized it's better to pretend to be deaf? Now you will learn the truth about the signal that should not exist. We used to think that the WOW signal was random cosmic noise or equipment error. 72 seconds of power 30 times higher than background radiation, recorded on August 15, 1977 by the Big Ear Radio Observatory in Ohio. And volunteer Jerry Emmon wrote one word on the data printout. Wow. This signal never repeated and was declared an anomaly, but here's what they didn't tell us then. The signal came from the constellation Sagittarius, from an area where sun-like stars are located. Its frequency of 1,420 MHz matches the hydrogen emission line, the most obvious frequency for interstellar communication, a universal beacon that any civilization would choose for first contact. And 2 years after this, NASA closed the SETI program, transferring funding to private hands. Is this a coincidence or a strategic decision to hide the truth? In 2020, the Breakthrough Listen Project publishes a preliminary report on signal BLC-1, which stands for Breakthrough Listen Candidate 1, source direction Proxima Centauri, frequency 982.002 MHz, bandwidth less than 5 Hz. And this is physically impossible for natural sources because pulsars radiate broadband, magnetars chaotically. Quasars in gamma range, a narrow band of 5 Hz, means only one thing: artificial origin. But then the real strangeness begins because the signal was recorded 5 times over 9 months of observations, each time with a Doppler frequency shift, as if the source is moving at orbital velocity around the star, on a planet called Proxima b. December 2021 Breakthrough Listen releases a second report, concluding that this is radio interference from communication satellites or ground equipment. But there's a critical problem. Interference doesn't explain the Doppler shift synchronized with the exoplanet's orbital period, doesn't explain the repeatability in strictly defined time windows, doesn't explain the mathematical structure inside the signal. And one of the report's authors anonymously wrote on Reddit that they knew it wasn't interference, but the protocol required silence until any possibility of error was excluded, and then the protocol was changed, and now it requires silence even when there is no error. Why? Because the world isn't ready, or because someone decided the world shouldn't know? Because the answer to this question changes everything forever, and this change could be deadly. Proxima Centauri is a real hell for any form of life as we know it. A red dwarf with a mass of 12% of the Sun, with a surface temperature of 3,000 Kelvin and luminosity of 0.17% of solar. But the real deadly threat is flare activity that occurs every 10 days. Class M and X flares 100 times more powerful than the strongest solar flares, with energy of 10 to the 33rd power ergs each, enough to evaporate Earth's atmosphere in a month if we were at such a distance. Proxima b, the nearest exoplanet to us, orbits at a distance of 0.05 astronomical units from its star. This is 20 times closer than Mercury to the Sun. The X-ray radiation flux on its surface is 400 times higher than on Earth. Any life there should be dead. Any atmosphere stripped by stellar wind, and radiation, any ocean evaporated into space billions of years ago. And yet, signal BLC-1 came from there with orbital modulation matching the rotation period of this planet, at 11.186 Earth days. Let's break down the signal piece by piece to understand the scale of the anomaly. Frequency 982.002 MHz is in the UHF range used for satellite communications on Earth, but no known satellite transmits at this exact frequency with accuracy to thousandths. Bandwidth less than 5 Hz is like a radio transmitter created by intelligent beings, because natural sources cannot be this narrow. Even cosmic masers on water or methanol vapor radiate at widths of hundreds of hertz, and here we see 5. The Doppler shift shows that the source shifted in frequency at a constant rate of approximately minus 30 kilometers per second relative to Earth. And this speed exactly matches the orbital velocity of Proxima b around its star, signal repetition period 11.2 Earth days versus the planet's orbital period of 11.186 days. Statistical probability of random coincidence 0.003%. This cannot be coincidence. For a signal of such power to reach Earth from a distance of 4.24 light-years, its source must have radiated at least 10 to the 14th power watts of directed energy. This is 100 times more than all electricity produced by humanity in a year concentrated in one pulse. And the question arises, who can afford such energy costs? Only a Kardashev Type 2 or higher civilization. A civilization capable of using the energy of an entire star for its needs. Your support of this channel through likes, comments, and subscriptions helps us dig deeper into the darkness of space that others prefer to ignore, because what we're discussing now doesn't appear in official news and isn't discussed openly in academic circles. It appears here with you, and only thanks to you can we continue this investigation. Now the darkest question. Why is the signal being hidden? And here are 3 hypotheses, each of which is frightening in its own way. The first hypothesis is the San Marino Protocol adopted by the International Academy of Astronautics in 2010. Article 8 states that information must be verified by independent sources before public announcement. Article 12 says that the decision to respond is made at the international level. Sounds reasonable, but here's what's not written in the protocol. What to do if the signal repeats regularly? What to do if it contains mathematical structure indicating intelligent origin? What to do if it doesn't wait for a response, but simply transmits information unilaterally? The second hypothesis is the dark forest scenario described in Liu Cixin's novel The Three-Body Problem. According to this theory, the universe is a dark forest where every civilization is a hunter, and the first rule of survival is to be silent, because whoever shouts in the darkness first attracts the predator. If this hypothesis is correct, then any signal is either a trap or suicide of whoever sent it. Responding to it means revealing your location, level of technology, and potential weaknesses to an unknown force that could be hostile. Perhaps someone in the US government or UN or in closed scientific circles decided that it's better to pretend to be deaf than risk all of humanity. The third hypothesis is the most eerie. What if BLC-1 is not a greeting and not an attempt at contact, but an automatic beacon left by a civilization that is long dead, or worse, that fled from something? A beacon that says, don't approach, it's dangerous here. We couldn't survive, you won't be able to either. And if this is true, then the question is not who transmitted the signal, but what they were fleeing from, and does this threat still exist? Now let's connect the puzzle pieces and look at the whole picture. Proxima Centauri flares too often and too regularly for a natural process. The standard model of red dwarf flare activity assumes chaos caused by magnetic pole reversal and convective processes in the star's interior. But data from the Test Space Telescope showed that Proxima's flares follow an 83-day cycle with precision exceeding any known natural rhythms. This is too precise for coincidence and too stable for turbulent processes. And now let's combine this with BLC-1 signal data, which was recorded only during periods of low stellar activity, only in so-called windows of silence between flares, as if the transmitter waits for radiation noise to decrease to a level allowing effective data transmission. This is not coincidence. This is optimization. This is a sign of intelligent planning. What if Proxima's flares are not a catastrophe, but exhaust? Imagine a civilization on a planet flooded with deadly radiation where surface survival is impossible. They go underground, build underground cities, develop technology in complete isolation from the starry sky. But energy from the planet's internal heat is insufficient for developing an industrial civilization. Then they begin to use the star itself through magnetic influence, induced flares, controlled thermonuclear ejection that can be collected by orbital collectors. Each flare is not a failure of physics. This is a success of engineering thought. This is a controlled energy source that a Kardashev Type 2 civilization uses for its needs. And Signal BLC-1 is not an attempt at communication. This is a byproduct of their energy infrastructure or an intentional leak designed for those developed enough to notice and understand it. If this is true, then we're looking not at a star, but an industrial object of grandiose scale. We are observing not a natural phenomenon, but a technological system that has been working for millions of years while we didn't even suspect its existence. And this changes all our ideas about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, because perhaps we were looking in the wrong place in the wrong way, and for the wrong thing. Now I fulfill the promise given at the beginning of the video. Here is the frequency fingerprint of Signal BLC, one published in a scientific paper in 2021. On the spectrogram, you see a narrow vertical line shifting left along the horizontal time axis. The vertical axis is frequency, horizontal is time shift to the left, is the Doppler effect, indicating that the source is moving away from us at a speed corresponding to the orbital motion of a planet around a star. But that's not all, because second-order analysis conducted by an independent group of researchers showed that inside the signal, there is a periodic structure with an interval of 0.7 seconds, like a heartbeat, like a metronome pulse. Mathematical analysis revealed that this pattern repeats 91 times, then disappears completely. And 91 is not a random number, because it's 13 multiplied by 7. Both prime numbers, the universal language of mathematics that any intelligent civilization would recognize as a sign of artificial origin. Now, imagine that you are the head of the Breakthrough Listen project, and you have just confirmed that this is not interference, not equipment error, not cosmic noise, but a real signal from another civilization. What do? Option 1, you publish the data openly. The world learns about contact panic or euphoria or chaos in financial markets, religious wars, political crises begin, because humanity is not ready for such truth. Are you ready to take responsibility for the consequences? Option 2, you respond to the signal, transmit a reply message hoping that on the other end is a friend, not a predator. But who are you calling? A civilization that may have been dead for millions of years, or a civilization that was waiting for someone to shout in the darkness to track them down? You reveal Earth's coordinates, the level of our technology, our weaknesses, and hope for the best. Option 3, you remain silent, bury the data, write a report about interference, and live with this knowledge until the end of your days, understanding that perhaps you just committed the greatest betrayal in human history or the greatest act of salvation. Which option would you choose? Write in the comments answer or stay silent, because one day this choice will face humanity for real and the consequences will be irreversible. For 70 years, we have been searching for a signal, spent billions, built giant telescopes, listened to millions of stars, and called it the Great Silence, Fermi's paradox, the question, where is everybody? But what if silence is not the absence of signals, but our choice not to hear them? What if signals arrive constantly, but we decide to close our eyes to them, because to hear means to respond, and to respond means to change everything forever without the possibility of turning back. Proxima Centauri is located 4.24 light years from us. Signal BLC-1 was recorded in 2019, which means it was sent in 2015 when there was no Breakthrough Listen project on Earth yet, when we weren't looking in that direction yet. Or maybe it is being transmitted right now, every day, every second while you watch this video. And the only reason we don't hear it anymore is that we stopped listening or we were ordered to stop. Answer or stay silent. Write your choice in the comments because this choice determines the future not only of science, but of all human civilization.